Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's 10 to 8 in the morning here. It's a lovely sunny day and I have decided to share with you a Victoria sponge recipe. So it's a classic, it's the basis of so many cakes and it's really easy to do. So for a Victoria sponge, you want to get 2 round cake tins, and I've greased these already. The cake's going to be going into your oven at 180 degrees and I'll give you the ingredients and all the information in the description. We need 150 grams of butter that you have made easy for yourself by leaving it at room temperature, and I've just started the process of cutting it up a little bit because we're beating it until it's nice and smooth. With that, I've added in the same amount of caster sugar, that's 150 grams. Now it's getting harder to get caster sugar and flour at the moment, so some of my caster sugar was left and I couldn't get any more, but all you have to do is get your granulated sugar and just put it into your blender or your Vitamix, whatever it is you've got, just for a few seconds, and that changes it from granulated into caster. And I believe the theory is that you would keep going and eventually you'd get powdered sugar, icing sugar. Don't quote me on it, I've not tried that, but blending it for a few seconds definitely made it finer, so I got my caster sugar. You need 175 grams of self-raising flour, 3 eggs. Now the separate bit here is for the filling, so the jam of your choice, I've got strawberry jam here. Now I love tinned cream, which I know is really weird to some people, but I just love it. It's got a taste that's just, to me, elevated up from normal cream. I don't eat it out the tin, but believe me, I could eat it out the tin. I don't know what it is, it's just lovely. So for the middle of mine, I'm going to do the jam, and it could either be fresh cream, but I'm weird, it's tinned cream. But we're also going to put some icing sugar dusted on top. But if you wanted to do buttercream, which is a traditional filling as well, then buttercream would be 100 grams of icing sugar to 50 grams of butter with a tablespoon of milk, and then that helps you create your buttercream, and then you can just change it up as you go, as in it might be too thick and you need to add a little bit more milk, or it might be too thin and you need to add a little bit more icing sugar, and that's how you do it. So let's get started with our cake. Right, so the bit that probably takes the most time is creaming the butter and the sugar together. So first of all, you're just making sure that I'm simplifying it, but it's almost as if the sugar is attached to the butter so it's not flying everywhere. You can easily do this with a whisk and hand whisk, but there's something about making a cake that if you want to enjoy the process, doing it by hand with a wooden spoon, you can just enjoy taking your time with it, and it's also a good workout too. So I like to just combine it first and press the butter and the sugar together before you really start whisking it. But it would be a little bit boring for you to watch the whole process, so I'll just get started with it and then I'll show you. But it can take a good few minutes. So when we spend a bit of time mixing it, what you're looking for is for it to be very soft and smooth and to fall off the spoon very easily. So we're still at that stage where we're getting the sugar to mix in with that butter, and you want your butter to be room temperature. If it's chilled, and some recipes it needs to be chilled, but if it's chilled, it's really hard to do that. So room temperature is the key. Right, just keep going with it. And then eventually it moves into a much softer mixture and it all starts to come together, and that's when you can really start mixing it round. So I'll come back to you once we're at that stage, but just keep going with this and you'll see it start to change. Right, so that's it creamed, it's nice and light and fluffy, as you can see. This is the bit where sometimes you think you're not doing something right. You're going to break, so you've got 3 eggs here, you're going to break 1 in and a little bit of flour to stop it curdling, but it might look like it's curdling, but it all comes together. And then once it's all mixed together, that's when you decide if you need to loosen up the mixture with a little bit of milk. So I'll just do one just now, just to let you see. So crack the egg in, a little bit of flour, and then very gently start to mix it in. So the flour's there to help prevent it curdling, but initially it's going to look weird and you're going to think, what is going on there? Look at that. But I guarantee you it all comes together. And the only thing you're going to do is not overwork it. If you keep beating it really hard and overworking it, you'll end up with a really dense cake. So you've got to do your big mixing movements, and then initially it can be like a fold and a mix, but you really don't want to be beating it really hard. So I'll add the other two in and then come back to you. Right, so the eggs are in. So now it's just a case of folding in the rest of the flour, and you do want to keep it light, so just fold it. It's all about keeping as much air in your cake as you can and try not to make a mess. So you're taking your time as you always do and just making sure that you scrape around the edges when you fold. If you scrape around the edges, then you're making sure that you're getting all the mix together. And you can come back to me when we're ready to put it into our tins. Right, so that's how our mix is looking. I'm going to divide it between both of the cake tins. Now I see sometimes you see the massive, huge Victoria sponges. I'm not convinced I'll get a massive rise on this one because of the amount of batter that's in the recipe and the size of the cake tins. But that's okay because we're just doing the actual how-to recipe and we'll see how it goes. Main thing is it will taste really good. I've been ordered to leave some, so I'll do as I'm told. And I'm just working it out to the edges. But I'd actually like a little bit more batter, but again, going by the recipe, I've probably not got as much for these tins as I would like, but that's okay. Again, we're not entering a competition, we're just making a cake for the house. So I'll just spread these both out to the ends, and these are going into the oven for about 25 minutes, and then we'll see how they look when they come out. Right, so the cake's cooled down. I would have liked a bigger rise in it, but like I said to you, I know exactly why. It's because of the cake dishes, the cake tins. They're a little bit wider than the volume of the batter that you get. So I've still got a rise on it. It's just if I had a slightly smaller cake tin, I'd get bigger rise. So I'm cool with that because it's just for us. We're not trying to win any prizes. We just want it to taste good. So really load up the base with lots of jam. So we're going to build this up quite thick. And then you don't want the cake to be too hot because if it's too hot, the jam will melt and it'll just start going everywhere. It can look good though over the sides. So again, that's your choice. I'll do another wee bit there. You can use the knife. And you want to take it to the edges too. The more that you work with the jam, it starts to break down and it becomes more pliable. I actually have a cake stand, but I've only just remembered, so it's a bit late now. But if you put it on the cake stand, obviously you can just spin the stand round. So I'll continue working on this and get it to the edges, and then I'll show you the next step. Right, next stage is the cream. So again, that might be strange, but to me the tinned cream tastes, it must be the process that they put it through. It tastes a bit like evaporated milk. So it's not as sweet as condensed milk, but I just love it. But I do love obviously real cream too. If you're doing your buttercream, this is the stage where you'll put it on. If it's fresh cream, or if it's anything such as this, whatever your filling is that you want to do, now's your chance that you put it on. So lovely thick dollops, and then we're just going to work that around. And then after that, our lid goes on. I love this. I don't really like buttercream, but I don't mind it when it's in a cake. But I don't really like cupcakes unless it's maybe a frosting. But I'm not mad keen on buttercream. And I think it's because when you start baking with it and you see that it is literally just butter and icing sugar, it must just put me off. And I'm not too fussed about taking it too far to the edges, because when I put the top of the cake on, that'll gently push it to the edge too. Give it a little squeeze. And again, I want it to look homemade, so I'm quite happy with little imperfections. And then we've got our top. Pop it there. That's where I tested it to make sure that it was cooked. And what I'll do now is just get some icing sugar and we'll sprinkle that on top. Right, last thing to do is the icing sugar. I just put a tablespoon of it in to the sieve, but obviously when you put it in the sieve, it instantly starts coming out, but that's okay, because all we're doing is just covering the top, and that just gives us our lovely little finish to our Victoria sponge. And that's how simple it is. And it's a go-to cake, it's a quick cake. You can change the recipe, well, you can keep the recipe the same, but you can change how you use it. Instead of making it into 2 big sponges, you can make it into cupcakes. You can add melted chocolate to it or cocoa powder. You can add coconut, lemon, keep going. There's so many different ways that you can do that. But it's a go-to, tasty. If someone's a bit fussy, it's hard not to enjoy a little bit of Victoria sponge. But I hope you like that. Always let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, or if you've got I cannot speak today. If you've got a recommendation for me that you'd like me to try or show off to me about your cakes, because I love to see what everyone's baking. And I will see you again soon.